Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hey, it's Coach Zach here from Vigor Revolution, bringing you the best science as always to create your leanest, strongest, healthiest body to serve your greatest purpose. Obviously, right now, everything has shifted. So I'm going to be disseminating some information over the upcoming weeks to upcoming months, really designed to get you training as best as possible for the current situation. Now is not the time to try to be setting, personal records in anaerobic training, like CrossFit type WODs, or pushing yourself super hard for physique changes, trying to get shredded. We can change our body, but the primary focus right now is going to be on our health, just to make sure that, if we're properly ready, and if you're not an at-risk population, that you're doing all you can to make sure that we're altruistically serving our at-risk population in our community, both our families and friends, families. We got to all do our part right now. There's this concept called flattening the curve, which I'll talk about in a future video. But I want to answer a huge question that I've seen in a bunch of groups I belong to, and that some people have been asking me. I had this conversation with a member earlier today, and we decided that she's going to hold off on training for 2 weeks, which I fully supported. So we came up with a situation that works for all of us. So the question right now is, should I go to the gym, or where should I go? One of the biggest problems we have right now is that people want a cut and dry answer that applies to every single person. And you're not going to get that, because we all have different factors that are going to be influencing the decisions that we have to make right now that's best for ourselves, our families, like I said, our community at whole, people that we interact with. So what are those factors? Uh-oh, my camera's on reverse. I forgot to shave too. Okay, number one, and arguably number 1A and B, is my age and my pre-existing conditions, including smoking. Am I a former smoker? Do I have any sort of heart issues? This is going to be the biggest one. Not only for yourself, but people that you're frequently in contact with. The biggest problem with this disease is that there's this latency period, this incubation period where we don't know if we're sick, and they're finding on average that's 17 days. Right now, from the data out of China, there's this median average of 17 days. So that poses a threat, because we can be functioning really well, feel fine, and we can still be transmitting it, okay? So the third factor, and this one's gonna play the biggest role in the US right now, all the data that's coming from Italy and China that's pretty scary is hitting this population, older smokers. And that's why we're seeing massive mortality rates of 7 to 8% right now. I don't have the number offhand, but like 80, if you're above 80, I think the number right now is like 11% or 12%. Okay, so those are the biggest risk factors. Now, the one that we don't really have a full grasp on yet that experts are a little concerned about in the US is obesity. Again, this is another condition that can make your immune system a little more susceptible to some of these viruses, okay? The fourth thing I would talk about is, how are you doing currently with sleep, with stress, with illness? If you're not sleeping well and you have a high stress load, and you have family members or people you're regularly coming in contact with, then it's probably not the right time to go to the gym, just to be 100% safe. We can all sacrifice a couple weeks. If we all do our part, we can flatten this curve in the next 2 to 4 weeks, and everything is going to play out as best as possible. Okay, and that covers number 5, my proximity to my at-risk populations. That's something you have to determine for yourself. One thing that hasn't really been discussed is the type of the gym, right? So it's a lot different if you're going to a major Globo gym and all the machines are packed close to each other, or you're doing fitness classes where you're right next against each other. That's a lot different than like my facility. Let me show you this. This will be my quick plug real quick. But as you can see, I got a lot of space right here, okay? So at any point in time, I can coach 8 to 10 people, and I can give them a full space that they can work in. The recommendation I've been seeing for bars and coffee shops and restaurants is you want about 3 feet of space between you and others. We can easily do that if we're in a big working environment, in a big gym. We sprayed down our all handles, we disinfected all of our touch surfaces. So really, to get into the gym, there's a door handle and that's it. And once you're inside, you're not coming in contact with anything. Really understand how this is spread. This is spread by droplets that are exhaled in coughs or sneezes, okay? The radius of that due to gravity, the researchers are saying is about 6 feet. So if I cough or I sneeze, all this stuff goes out. Gravity is bringing it down within a 6 feet radius. Now, once it's on those surfaces, they're starting to test surface life, and they've been finding like a median half-life age for this. Really depends on the surface. And that's just a fancy way of saying an approximate time it's going to live on something. Plastics right now, they're estimating 72 hours. Cardboard, from a study I saw cited by Dr. Peter Attia in a podcast I'll link below, was cardboard was up to 48 hours, steel was 24 hours, and then copper was 8 to 24 hours. So that's a big piece of information that's been kind of, I see going out that's wrong, is people are going to say, well, if you have, put copper handles on because the virus can't live on it. No, it can live on there too. Again, it's really going to depend on how much is on there and how, the length of time. So be realistic with all this stuff. We'll talk about flattening the curve in a different video. And I'm going to be talking about some at-home training tips and some programs you can do in the gym itself. Again, right now, we got to focus on our movement ability. We got to stay loose. Number one, that's a huge reliever of stress. My ability to move in a full range of motion is going to feel the best. It's going to make me feel the most free and the most relaxed. That, along with meditation, we're going to be focusing on strength training, making sure that I'm building up my immune system as best as possible. I'm a little stuffy right now. That was from some allergies last week. Don't worry. I didn't have the telltale signs. And every video I do, I'm going to finish with this piece of information, which is I've talked to some friends that work at hospitals, and the biggest risk factors right now are, number one, this can be, I'll cite three, and it doesn't necessarily have to be 1, 2, or 3, but the three biggest risk factors right now are, do you have a fever? If you're feverish and you feel off and it doesn't feel like a normal flu or cold, that's the time to go get looked at. Number 2, do you have a dry cough? And number 3, is there shortness of breath? Okay, if those things start to pop up, then yes, that's the time to seek medical attention. If you have normal flu and cold symptoms, and there's not a fever there, there's not a dry cough, there's not a shortness of breath, it's probably something different. That comes from the CDC. I'll post that down below. But really pay attention to those three big ones: shortness of breath, dry cough, fever, and just something that feels completely off that you've never felt before. I will say last week, like I said, I had some allergy stuff pop up. It was a very interesting 2 days because anytime I was breathing, I was like, oh, okay. I was very aware of what was going on inside my body. Let's just say it like that. But I never had a fever, so I was fine, passed it. It's all good, a little stuffy still. But anyways, life goes on. So I hope that makes sense. If you have any questions, if you disagree too, please post down below, disagree. If you've heard something different, my biggest goal with this is to share information coming from disease experts and researchers, because there's a lot of shit going, this is part of my language, but there's a lot of shit going around right now that's not going to be helping people, okay? Now is not the time to be talking about conspiracy theories or blaming political entities or anything like that. Now's the time to make sure that we're doing all that we can altruistically, not only for ourselves, obviously, but for our families, our friends, and our community, and making sure that we're doing our part to keep everyone as safe as possible, okay? We'll talk about flattening the curve next. I'm going to talk about nutrition, to keep the immune system high, and training right now. And both of those are going to be in a context if you haven't been doing either, okay? Because that's kind of a big problem right now, since we know that obesity is going to be a risk factor. How do we take that population and how do we, help them get ready just in case they do come in contact with, so that they don't need emergency medical attention? Hope that makes sense. Post your comments and questions down below. Go make a great day. Go help somebody. Let's get through this next day, and we'll keep going one day at a time. Make a great day. Peace.